New allegations against Donald Trump here from someone who worked with him more closely than most, the former personal attorney to Donald Trump, Michael Cohen. Now, he is promoting a new book, and he shared some of this with our colleague Lester Holt.
I described Mr. Trump as a cult leader, and I was in this cult. And while I was in the cult, I was really refusing to acknowledge that the actions that I was performing for my boss were morally wrong.
You called Trump a racist. Were you witness to any moments that you thought he was exhibiting racism or used a racial slur?
Yeah, unfortunately, all too many times. We had one where right after Nelson Mandela had passed away, and I talk about this in the book. He asked me if I had known of any country that's run by a black that's not an S-hole. And I said, well, how about America? To which he gave me the proverbial FU.
Cohen also discussing details about the relationship with Putin. He writes, as the campaign went along, as Trump started to see ways to cheat and lie to win, he came to see that Russia could potentially be a great ally, not just for the U.S., but for him personally, a distinction that was starting to blur. Now, Cohen is home. He was serving a 3-year prison sentence after pleading guilty to tax evasion, bank fraud, lying to Congress, as well as campaign finance violations, including 2 counts that related to hush money payments arranged for women in 2016. The White House has been critical, issuing denials, calling the book fan fiction, and saying Cohen readily admits to lying routinely, but expects people to believe him now so he can make money from book sales, end quote. We're joined now by former Trump Organization executive Barbara Rez. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Ari. Wonderful to see you.
Wonderful to see you as well. I think taking the point from the rebuttal from the White House, it is fair to distinguish between whatever a person might be doing for their own reasons, selling a book, et cetera, and what can be corroborated. What is the evidence here? That's what Mueller was looking at. That's what the Southern District of New York was looking at. And that's what we're looking at with you right now. So based on your own experience and eyewitness accounts, what out of what we just heard and what else is coming out of this book strikes you as true or matches your experience with Donald Trump?
Well, it's been my experience that he will do anything to win, and he does not. The line that none of us will cross is just very easy for him to go across. As far as the racism is concerned, yes, I've often said this. There were many incidents where I saw him being racist.
What did you see or hear in terms of him being, as you say, racist?
Well, there were some particular incidents that happened on Trump Tower and just in his office in general. And, he's covered in a lot of books and mine as well. But things that he would say about primarily Black people, although he did have, his own ideas about every single race and every single ethnicity and who did what and who was good at this, and none of them were ever good. Even saying that Jews are good with money, which is something he liked to say a lot, he didn't mean it in a way that was admiring. It was kind of like a pejorative.
So in your view, he was pejorative about Jews, even say the Jews that he might work with or contract with?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've said this before. I consider him to be an anti-Semite.
And yet his daughter famously converted to Judaism.
Right, and that doesn't really change things.
And you said, just to get it clearly, and sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, we're not talking about Ivanka, we're talking about Donald.
Yeah, we are talking. You put it crisply, and it's true. When you see specifically the anti-Black racism, as you put it, you say that he was bigoted in general, but you felt there was more prejudice or more frequent prejudice towards Black people?
Yes, I do. Yeah. And yeah, I have some things I'm doing a book, and I have some specific instances that I will be sharing. But, I was reading Michael's book, and the comments about Obama were amazing and spot on to me. I can just see it, how it made him crazy that Obama, a Black man, was president.
Yeah, I think it is important for people to have these details when they are backed by evidence, by people who are in the room, so to speak, particularly because while the problems we're going through as a country as we've emphasized in this broadcast, they predate Trump, obviously, when you look at our original sin of racism. But whether this is an act or something that is somehow, as some of his minimizers claim, just something that he's doing, quote unquote, for politics, or whether it is deep-seated, ongoing racism and how that fits into the way it's changed the Republican Party in parts of America, I think is a discussion voters ought to have before this election is over and done. I want you to stay with me because we have something brand new. This hasn't aired yet. Rachel Maddow just sat down with Michael Cohen. And so this is going to air in full on her broadcast tonight, which we think is worth watching. But we did get a clip that's going to air for the first time right now. They're discussing Trump's financial relationship with Vladimir Putin.
Let me ask you, Michael, about something that you describe in detail, which is also something that I've sort of spent a long time chasing, which is this unusual story. This is page 249 of your book, chapter 12, which has got a lot of great stuff in it. And you talk about.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, 12. This is my jam. This is the part for me. So you write that the president effectively sort of flipped a house in Palm Beach. You describe it as an architectural nightmare, which I found effective. But he made a profit on that in excess of $50 million. And what you write about in Chapter 12 is that the president told you that although the person who bought that house from him for this $50 million plus profit was a Russian fertilizer billionaire, the president told you that he believed the actual money was Putin's. Quote, "The oligarchs are just fronts for Putin," Trump told me. He puts them into wealth to invest his money. That's all they're doing, investing Putin's money. And then you say, in your words, Trump was convinced the real buyer of that house was Vladimir Putin. Was he speaking seriously and literally there? Did he actually think that Putin had arranged this $50 million windfall for him?
Well, I don't know what he was thinking. I can only tell you, which I did in the book. I could recount the conversation. He believes that all of the Russian oligarchs are basically pawns of Vladimir Putin. He controls all of them, I guess very much to the same extent that Mohammed bin Salman had the ability within which to lock up all of his relatives and other members of the royal family for money, right? Trump is keen on this power, and whether it's Putin, Mohammed bin Salman, the Kim Jong-uns, the Maderos, it's the power that he's so involved with and so in search of, that this is exactly what he believes. He believes that Putin controls all of Russia and all of its wealth. And anything like the purchase of this home had to have been through or with the permission of Vladimir Putin.
Really striking. And Barbara, two quick points. One, that would seem to be a savvy, informed read on the way that the Russian economy actually operates, even if he doesn't know the names of Khodorkovsky or different billionaires who've fallen in and out of favor with Putin. That is how our experts describe it. And then two, do you think that this entire Russian riddle could boil down to something very simple? Donald Trump thinks Putin got him money, whether true or not, and that would explain a bunch of behavior?
I think it's not simple. To be honest with you, I think that there's probably many, many different elements to it. I think that they're intertwined. I think that they're so influential, the Russians, in what Donald does, that, you have to question why that is, to be honest with you. Putin and Trump are on the surface alike, but very different. I mean, Putin does not live for being praised by other people. Putin doesn't fool himself into things like Trump does. And I see Putin thinking that Trump is a bit of a fool and taking advantage of that.
And real quickly, did you ever hear anything about that type of apartment or other deals where that money might have been from Russian oligarchs?
No, actually, no. I'm sorry. I really didn't. It was different time when he was selling apartments, and it was different people that were buying them.
Yeah. No, then that's fine. That's why we like to get all the details from you, Barbara Rez.
You know who was buying it when they were being sold? That was a different time.
Yeah,
now
different time.
It's just LLCs and corporations and things like that.
It's a different time, Barbara. Sometimes some people say things are going downhill.
I think so.
I don't know if you've heard about that.
I'm very hopeful that they are going downhill for Mr. Trump. I hope that this is the end of his presidency.
Well, we will see. But as I remind viewers in the evidence, it's interesting that someone like you who did work for him, who did spend time around him, like Michael Cohen, like Anthony Scaramucci, like some of the generals, have come to that view. You are hopeful that the Trump era is ending, even if you once gave him some enough a benefit of the doubt to work with him. I think that's itself interesting. Barbara, always good to see you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.